Ask not what we all be can do for you. Ask what you can do for we all be.
Hello, Sergeant Cody.
Yes.
All right, we all be proud to have on once again Sergeant Lee Cody, the guy who actually solved the murder of Johnnie Mae Chappell case almost 50 years ago. It will be 50 years, March 23rd, 2014. It's an honor to have you back on again, sir. How you doing?
Well, I'm still kicking.
Yeah, you are still kicking, and I was talking to you because you had a lot of people lately contact you about what's going on with the Johnnie Mae Chappell case. Could you?
Sometimes I get so frustrated. Like the presentation that Channel 12 and Ken Amaro made yesterday, to me, it was not worth the 1,000-mile round trip they took. One of the main reasons is didn't show or mention my book. It doesn't. The book doesn't mean anything to me. I wrote the book for one reason.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the book so that the people who are interested in justice in our nation and want to know about these things can have access to the information. That's what my book's about. Hearing these little clips and talking about it and the little things, you can't really get a grip on how terrible a violation of civil rights this is until you read my book. And that's why I wrote the thing. As I've said before, I wish a copy of it was in every college and every high school in America so kids could read it and say, my God, I got to watch out. This could happen to me.
The book is called The 14th Denial, right? It's called The 14th Denial?
Yes, and
okay.
I just couldn't understand Ken not showing my book and talking about it, just mentioning it, because that's the Bible. I mean, that's where the information is. If people are interested and want to know about this corruption, they're not going to know it until they read it. And I wrote it so they could read it. And
this is a Jacksonville news organization, right? That came
right, the Channel 12, and I don't know if they don't get it, or they just, I don't know. Just certain things, like Ken Amaro was showing. I have a copy, and of the shooter's statement, his sworn confession, and he points out in there that he said, "I didn't mean to shoot her; it was an accident." Well, Ken Amaro doesn't know what I know. He shouldn't put stuff like that in there for the simple reason that before the shooter made that statement, that confession, he had talked to his lawyer for 30 minutes on the telephone. And his lawyer said, whatever you do, don't make it intentional.
Who was the shooter's name? What was the shooter's name?
J.W. Rich.
Okay.
We gave him access to a telephone so he could talk. His lawyer wouldn't come down, said it was so late. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. But he had an opportunity to talk to him. And, of course, after he talked to him, his lawyer gave him the fine points of what to say and what not to say. And the one thing he wanted to get over in his statement, well, I didn't mean to do it. Well, that's not so. That's not what the facts bear out. They were riding around during the middle of a race riot, and one of them, it doesn't matter who said it, let's go get a nigger. That statement was made in that vehicle.
Right. And
not one person in that vehicle said, oh, I'm not getting anybody. Get me home. I'm not hurting anybody. Please, take me home. Mm-hmm. That's not what happened. They all drove directly to the northwest quadrant of Duval County, shot a black woman to death, hid the gun, the murder weapon, and hid the crime. So you tell me if he didn't mean to do it.
So, Sergeant Cody, I want to ask you this. You feel like there's still a cover-up going on with the establishment of this case?
It's been that way for 50 years.
But using the media, though, you feel like the media is involved in that? The media is involved in that? You feel like the media is involved in it?
Every public official that was warranted by oath of office to rectify this terrible injustice either deliberately covered it up or ignored it. So in one way or another, all of them that I have been, that's federal and state officers and officials, state attorneys, U.S. attorneys, governors, the present state attorney in Jacksonville, Angela Corey, she covered it up and taken steps recently to immune herself from being able to prosecute them, according to assistant state attorneys that I talked to that used to work with her. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if that for a fact. But when she was in Tampa, in Sanford on the Trayvon Martin case, I know that several emails hit the governor's desk saying, how could you appoint this woman to investigate a hate crime or a murder or maybe whatever it turned out to be when she's covering up the murder of a black woman in Jacksonville, Florida. And then I'm sure the governor contacted her and asked her, what's this about? And the next day, those killers, not state witnesses, but the killers, were subpoenaed to her. Well, I don't know if they were subpoenaed or requested to come, but anyway, they were in her office, and they were questioned by one of her subordinates. I understand. This is what I've been told, and I read.
But what's interesting
when she did that, Ken, according to what these state attorneys that I talked to, former state attorneys that worked with her, that if they asked those men one question pertaining to the murder, that they would then, from that point on, be immune from prosecution. If she did that on purpose, and she must have, she called them up there, she was obstructing justice. And she ought to be removed from office.
I mean, definitely. I think people, the public at large, from a national point of view, are starting to understand what you are saying about Angela Corey, because the cases like the Trayvon or the George Zimmerman trial, then the Michael Dunn case, and now the Marissa Alexander thing that's coming up again. So I think people are understanding now what you're talking about, Angela Corey.
She is a water moccasin. That's what she is.
Wow.
And I knew when she was being elected, when she was running for office, I went to her and asked her. I said, Angela, and I knew her. I said, are you going to give justice to the Chappell family if you're elected? Don't you worry about it. I will take care of it. And I said, well, that's wonderful news. But in a kind of a exasperated voice, she said, oh, God, I hope none of this involves Ed. Now, that's Ed Austin, her former boss, who was one of the biggest obstructors of justice in this case. So what she did, see, when you're up there with a viper like a criminal like Ed Austin for 10 years, there's no telling what you got involved in.
Right. And,
it's kind of like one bank robber just really is reluctant to tell on the other one. She's not an honorable person. If what I've been told by lawyers is a result of her bringing those killers up to her office, well, she's criminally obstructed justice. And I would like somebody on camera to ask her, what was the compelling legal reason that you did that?
So do you feel like at this point in the game there got to be some type of federal intervention? Like
that's exactly what has needed to be done all along. But let me tell you again, Ken, a federal prosecutor and the FBI both criminally obstructed justice in this case.
Okay.
So every time I say that, I say that without fear of contradiction. I want somebody to challenge me. I've written to the director of the FBI, Louis Freeh, and I outlined it to him. He ignored my letter. I mean, this is right off the get-go. When we reported our chief of detectives, who we had a ironclad case of criminal obstruction in this case, to the sheriff, and the sheriff turned around and protected our chief. And then 10 days later, while an agent from the Jacksonville office watched the sheriff try to frame me and Donald Coleman with an agent from the old Florida Sheriff's Bureau, and I have a copy of a deposition he gave telling all about it, how they lied to him and said they want to get some dirty cops, and he said, I found out the dirty ones was the one that called me. But anyway, a FBI agent named Robert McCarthy had been forewarned that this was going to happen. He watched it come down. Now that is an undeniable violation of my civil rights and Sergeant Coleman's civil rights to try to falsely incriminate us. He watched it. He was told before it happened, watched it happen, and then with 3 witnesses, all police officers, he said, "Why?" If we said, "Who do you think? What's this?" We think the sheriff's involved, and we think that's an agent from the Florida Sheriff's Bureau. We didn't know at the time, but it turned out it was. And he said, "Well, why would he do that?" Then we told him about the Chappell homicide and the cover-up. He said, "Oh my God, oh my God." Mm-hmm. He said, "Lee, you make sure you're home Monday morning." This was on Saturday. He said, "At 10 o'clock, I'm going to call you because I'm going to write my reports over the weekend and turn them in when I get there. And I'm sure they'll be calling you soon." Well, he called us, and Sergeant Claude West, who unfortunately is deceased now, he was on the extension, and Agent McCarthy called me, and voice was trembling. He said, "I just left D.K. Brown's office," and that was the agent in charge of the Jacksonville office. And he said, "Lee," said, "he told me if I ever spoke to you or Sergeant Coleman or Sergeant West again, I would be censured and transferred. Please don't call me. I have children." And he hung the phone up.
So I know this is what you're basically dealing with. You're dealing with something like, something like a Hollywood movie, like L.A. Competition.
Yeah, well, I'd say John Grisham.
Yeah, John Grisham. That's even better, right? But
he couldn't write this.
It's kind of hard to believe, but it is believable because, like, now we know some of the history coming out, about law enforcement involvement in some of
Ron, I have the documentation.
Right.
I would not say it, nor would I have it printed if I couldn't prove it.
Here's the thing, guys.
I tell you, it's as I said before, you heard me say it.
Right.
This is the most egregious civil rights case in America. It pales every one of them, because never in the annals of our country's history has this type of civil rights violation been orchestrated by a public official, and everybody in the nation that has been in a position to rectify this either turn their head or participated in the cover-up, one or the other.
Okay,
I sent a copy of the letter, my book, to the President of the United States under certified mail to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a great big green stamp with a White House stamp on it, knowing that that book arrived at the White House with a little cover letter saying, "We need your help."
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard a word.
So this is like, okay, how long ago was that?
About 2 weeks.
Okay, so I want to ask you this, because, you and your partner, Donald Coleman, has suffered from the backlash from the establishment, as you already noted. And but I'm saying y'all actually solved this case within the calendar year of it happening. Y'all solved it back in 1964, correct? By the end of 1964, y'all
correct.
solved it. So, almost 50 years later, how do you feel? Do you feel regretful of ever getting involved? How do you feel about this thing, knowing that officially it's not
sick over it, like I've always been. I'm sick over not only Johnnie Mae being killed, that woman being brutally slain. I'm sick for our country.
Mm-hmm.
This is contrary to everything that our Constitution and the rule of law that this country honor is predicated on, and it has been decimated. And that is not acceptable to me. That's what's driven me all these years.
And so
people call me a hero and all that. I'm not a hero. Heroes fall on hand grenades. I'm a patriot. If you want to label me a patriot. I have fought for the Constitution and the rule of law of our country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a hero. I didn't take any bullets. I did in a way.
You took some bullets. You suffered for your service. You definitely suffer. You suffer for your service to your country in more ways than one. On a professional and personal level as well. So,
I'm a 100% disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
During the Korean War, I was on a Coast Guard cutter, and they sent us to Curtis Bay, Maryland, and refitted our ship with every new device known to anti-submarine warfare at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And for 2 years, we patrolled. I don't know exactly where we were, but we were nearest from top of South America all the way around towards the Panama Canal. And all we did all week long was what we call anti-submarine warfare drills. And, of course, that constituted dropping depth charges.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately for me, my battle station was in the very aft or end of the ship.
Mm.
And when you're on battle stations, the ship shut down, locked down, all the ports are locked shut, and you only have a force-draft blower blowing air in from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately for me, at that time in our country's history, all of our ships, all of the pipes were laden with asbestos.
Oh, man. Okay.
So when these depth charges would go off and I'd get the brunt of it, it'd lift the tail of the ship right out of the water.
Wow.
And it'd shake those pipes, and all that asbestos was flying around. And we used to laugh. There was 2 guys in there with me. We'd say, man, it's snowing again. And that high-powered blower was blowing right up my nose. So my pleurer or my lung lining are full of asbestos.
Wow.
And if I'm going to die, unless I have a heart attack or something else, it'll probably be from mesothelioma, the lung disease from asbestos. But, it's, and I don't ever talk about that really, but whatever it is. And I've lived this long. I wonder, is there really going to ever be justice for this lady and her family? Is that why I'm being left to live this long? I keep thinking about that. I had cancer, cured that. I had a broken hip, cured that. I'm walking around on it.
So you feel like it's like a punishment for you to be living this long? I mean, you feel like it's a punishment for you to be around?
I wonder if it's destined to be. But you see, the tragedy of the whole thing is that I am the only fact witness on this earth now left alive that can walk into a grand jury or a courtroom and testify against these men. I'm the only one. If I die, when I die, we're all going to die, right?
Oh, exactly.
When I die, when I'm gone, it's over. Anybody else wants to talk about it, it's hearsay.
No, I would say it's over because you left a historical record. You wrote a book, you got the documents, you did interviews, so you did your job. I mean, you're there. It's going to survive you after you're gone. You actually left a legacy where people can actually try this and get justice, some type of compensation for the family, which is impossible because they lost their matriarch. But
now,
you did your job. You solved the case.
I'm going to give you an interesting little sideline here real quick.
Okay.
The family of El Mercado, one of the killers, reached out to me.
Okay.
His brother Jack and his wife Amanda. They're really, really nice people. And they really wanted the Chappell family to know that they weren't like Elmer, that they resented and disliked everything he ever did. And so I've gotten to be pretty good friends with them. We talked, they really honestly, sincerely are hurt by what Elmer did. Well, just yesterday, in fact, I plan to call Amanda and Jack tomorrow after the Times Union first in Jacksonville. They're going to run a story. Mm-hmm. Their reporter came over to Mississippi to see me too.
Okay.
So the Florida Times Union, you can go to Jacksonville.com, and they'll have the story that their reporter wrote about this incident. Now, what he's going to write, we were together for a half a day, and he saw all kinds of documents, took all kinds of pictures, and we talked about everything. Now, what he'll touch on, I don't know. But the important things that they need to say and do, they seem not to do it. I don't know if they don't get it. They don't understand the significance of things. I don't know.
But you feel like the media, do you feel like the media is in hand with the establishment, though? You feel like the establishment is controlling the media to do these stories?
Unfortunately, Ron, if it had not been for the corrupt newspaper in Jacksonville, the same company, not the same company, they've changed hands, and Channel 4, CBS in Jacksonville,
mm-hmm.
If it hadn't been for their corruption, this couldn't have happened. They both stopped, would not allow the truth to be printed, because I told them the truth, and they covered it up. So So,
well, the truth is getting out there. Like your book, The 14th to Now, I'll make sure that people know about your book as well. Like I said, a lot of people been looking at the last interview you done with the family that you did on my show back in the summer. So a lot of folks are learning about this story for the first time, and
right.
I think it's going to make a difference. Like I think that your work or your life has not been in vain. You actually did what you had to do. You solved the case, which on the book is officially unsolved, whatever. It's officially unsolved, but you actually solved it within the calendar year of her dying. So that's hell of detective work. Y'all did great detective work, you and your partner, Donald Coleman. You wrote this book. You got the documents. You named the names. So I think that you did what you had to do. But, like, the fact that, it bothers me that you feel like you are being punished for doing a job well done.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Ron, it's important. Listen, it's important for your listeners to know that as far as the death of Johnnie Mae Chappell or the killing of her was not a racial thing with me, even though it was.
Right.
It was a homicide, and I was hired and sworn to solve a murder if I was assigned.
Right.
So I wasn't out to get anybody to do anything. It was a homicide. It was my job to sign it, and I wouldn't give a damn who Johnnie Mae Chappell was.
Right.
She'd been murdered in Duval County, and it was my job to solve that murder, and I did.
Well, I wish they had more people like you on the force and in public life. We need more people like that, honestly.
There were none.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two of the guys that I just remember what it was like in 1964.
Mm.
And here's another thing that has always been in my gall.
Mm-hmm.
All this hatred it heaped on Mississippi, on Alabama, and Louisiana, and it was worse in Jacksonville, Florida, than any of these other stories.
Yeah, it's coming out now. I mean, it's still kind of bad in Florida.
It was coming up for all those years,
Right. I never thought Florida was this gangster like that when it came to stuff like this.
Let me tell you what. we didn't have any black detectives. We didn't have any black uniformed patrol officers. Not one.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Not one.
Mm.
You see, Dale Carson was a Hooverite, and Hoover was one of the worst racists that ever lived in this country.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's one of his clones.
Mm.
Wow. He's the sheriff. He sets the policy of that department.
Mm-hmm.
His policy was there'll be no black police officers here. Oh, we had 2 or 3 token deputies that did nothing but wander around and work the black community when it was election time. That's the only purpose they had.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't investigate any crimes or anything. And one of them, I think we had 1 or 2 that were what we call paper servers.
Yes.
They served subpoenas and different civil papers, but they weren't involved in the department. And that was Dale Carson, the sheriff's fault. He set the tone. He was the administrator. He allowed that to take place. If he'd have been a man of integrity, he wouldn't have allowed that. When people would apply, men would apply for the. I actually saw this now, and I'm not telling you something I didn't see.
Right.
I happened to be in the County Road Patrol Chief's office one day, and a lieutenant named he just passed away too. He was a uniformed lieutenant. Jimmy Ward was there, and they were looking at the applications for the County Road Patrol, which was submitted to the Civil Service Board.
Mm-hmm.
And if any one of them had a black picture, you had to submit a small small passport type photo on your application. They just dropped it right in the garbage can. I watched it. What you gonna do? I couldn't do anything.
Well, I mean, you did what you could do under those circumstances.
I just thought, as I got older, and I got to thinking about things. I was born in a hardcore segregated society, and I lived in that. Mm-hmm. And I got to thinking later on. I'm thinking about just the fact that black folks would get on a bus and have to go to the back of that bus and sit down up back there. They couldn't sit up front. I used to see it when I was a child, young man, and I just accepted it because that's the way it was.
Right.
But when I got older and got to thinking about it as time has gone by, I said, just how humiliating and demeaning was that to another human being? To have to walk by the white folks and sit in the back. That had to hurt somebody's feelings, something horrible. Couldn't drink out of a water fountain. Couldn't come to the beach. They couldn't do anything. They were a total separate entity as far as this nation was concerned.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm going to ask you that the actual shooter of Johnnie Mae Chappell, he's no longer with us, right? He's dead?
Yeah, he died of cancer.
How long ago was that?
Not too long, a couple of years ago. He was a stone-cold drug addict and alcoholic.
Do you feel like he felt guilty? Do you feel remorse, you think, about what he did to Johnnie Mae Chappell?
No, in no way.
Okay.
He was a hardcore racist. Now, I was going to tell you something about talking to Amanda and Jack Cato.
Yes.
I've got to call them. In fact, I plan to call them tonight, make sure they're back home. Seems like Elmer might want to talk to me, and I'm not able to do that, make that trip. I really am not. But if he'll want to talk to me about the payoff and how they bribed the prosecutor, and give me a tape recording or he's dying of cancer, of a dying declaration, I can use that and give that to the Chappell family, and they can ask the state of Florida for compensation for what the state official did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you need some help,
or in fact, they might be, and there again, a lawyer would have to decide this. If with that statement that the only reason their mother's killers were allowed to walk free was they bribed a prosecutor and he accepted it, well, that's a total, absolute criminal obstruction of justice and a capital murder.
Oh, yeah, it needs to be
proven.
there.
And if one of the murderers will confess and say, that's how we did it, well, that's prima facie evidence that the state of Florida violated the civil rights of their mother and them as children. There's no doubt about it. And they are due to be compensated for that terrible, horrible crime.
I definitely, if you need help, like you need somebody to record it for you. I mean, I know you say you do it over the phone. I'd be more than happy to record it for you all as you ask the questions to them and, get it done. I mean, get it out there as well.
Well, I just hope that somehow, I always hoped all along that somewhere, somehow, somebody will hear about this and contact me, somebody has the power and the authority to rectify this, particularly the President of the United States and his Attorney General and the Director of the FBI. They need to get this done, and they don't have to investigate anything. All they've got to do is call me before a grand jury.
Well, hopefully that will be the case, and I just want to thank you once again for your service, that you did a hell of a job under the circumstances of trying to bring justice and light to what happened to Johnnie Mae Chappell almost 50 years ago. And before we go, I'd like to, you have any closing words or thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I just hope and pray somehow, some way, before I meet my Maker, that some decent, honorable individual in this country that has the authority will step up and say, we're going to make this public. We're going to do what's right. We're going to prosecute whichever the killers are still alive. We're going to do that. And please call me to a federal grand jury. Please allow me. I'd love to have a congressional hearing on this and let me appear before the Congress. I swear to God, Ron, I said it before, I'll say it again. This is the most egregious civil rights case that's ever been documented in American history, and it should be made known to the whole country. And maybe by that happening, those who are inclined to do these kind of criminal things might change their mind about it and say, my God, this man was on this case for 50 years and finally got justice. So it can be done. It can be done. So I better be careful what I do.
Oh, well, you did a lot of great things so far. So, job ain't done yet, but it's almost there. God's will be done. But also, I guess it's 4 people in all that was involved in the killing of Johnnie Mae Chappell, and 3 of them are still alive.
That's correct.
And they all live in Jacksonville?
They do, in and around Jacksonville. Yeah.
In and around Jacksonville, so that should be kept in mind as well.
Well, I'll be checking on Cato's request as far as I can. I was told about a couple of days ago that he wants to talk to somebody, and I'm very, very. It would be hard for me to go into Nassau County where he lives and get that statement. But if he will do it, I'll find a way to get there.
All right, cool. If you could talk on the phone, like I said, I can help you record it if there's anything else. But, I hope it all is well. I think it'll turn out just fine, and justice will be done in some type of way.
Well, Ron, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your help, and I know the family of Johnnie Mae Chappell appreciates it, and I hope somehow, some way, it would be the best thing in the world for this to culminate in justice. It'll be the best thing in the world for our country.
Right.
It would solidify everything that our country stands for. That guarantees that it won't happen to an American citizen. It would be the greatest thing in the world for our country to say, well, it was wrong. It's been rectified.
That's it. So hopefully it'll be done someday soon. Well, thank you once again, Sergeant Cody. We love you madly and keep on doing what you're doing. Keep producing and pushing.
And thank you so much, Ron.
No problem. Take care.
Good luck.
All right.